Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about the looming end of financial year in Australia approaching 30th of June and possible changes that can happen in migration and visa legislation when the year ends. My name is Erica. I'm one of the co-founders and registered migration agents here at Bravo Migration. We're an immigration law firm and we've been operating since 2008. So what is this madness about every financial year people getting super worried about migration and visas? There's a reason for that. The financial year in Australia starts on the 1st of July and ends on the 30th of June. So a lot of changes and new things that may happen in relation to migration legislation and visas are implemented on the 1st of July. That's when things start in a way. Also, allocations that have been decided in the previous financial year budget announcement in relation to the future financial year also start being in effect on the 1st of July. Legislative instruments may start being in effect on the 1st of July as well. So it's always a tense time for people thinking about migrating to Australia who have a pending application or who are thinking about lodging an application. So what's super important today is to understand that if you are ready to make an application for whatever visa, you're better off doing this before the end of the financial year, because you know what the legislation requires of you now, what requirements for your visa, what is the scenario, how many places are available for the type of visa you're applying for, and we never know what's going to happen when the 1st of July comes. As I'm recording this, it is April, and we know a few things that might change. We know at least one thing that's going to change, but there's many things that may still change and we still don't know they're coming. And especially when it has to do with allocations of places for general skilled migration visas. So if you're looking at applying for a subclass 189, 190, 491 visa, we only know how many places will be available for those visas when there's a budget announcement. The budget announcement is in May, and that's when they announce how many places will be available for each visa. But those places only start really being in effect from the 1st of July. So we know at the moment the government's inviting a lot of people for subclass 189. Is it going to still be the same from the 1st of July? We don't know. The budget announcement hasn't happened yet. So if you're thinking about going ahead with a visa application, do it now, because you never know what's going to happen in July. Another change that could happen, and most often than not happens from the 1st of July, is that if you're looking at the state nominated visa subclass 190 or the regional provisional visa 491 through a state or territory nomination stream as well, those visas require state or territory nomination, and that means each state and territory has their own criteria when deciding who they want to nominate. Also, they are allocated a number of places for each one of those visa subclasses, which we don't know what will be. It may be that they get more allocations than for this financial year or less. Depending on their allocations, then the states and territories sit down and decide, right, which professionals are we needing in our state, and how many places we got, how many of these places will go to each occupation, and what our requirements will be based on these allocations. So that means they could change their occupation lists. So if your occupation is in demand on a state or territory at the moment, there's no guarantee it will still be in demand there after the 1st of July. We also don't know if requirements will change. If they get more places than this year, it may be that the requirements become more flexible, which would be amazing. But if the states and territories get less places than the current financial year, it may be that they will make requirements harder to meet because they don't have that many places, the visas to nominate people for. So again, it's always a very smart decision to make an application before the end of the financial year. Another reason for that is that every year for the past, I would say 3, 4, 5 years, on the 1st of July, the Department of Home Affairs increases their visa application fees. It's not by a lot, normally 3, 4, 5%, but normally there's an increase on the 1st of July as well. So if you want to avoid that price increase, you're better off making your application before the end of the financial year, before the end of July. Now, one of the changes we know for sure is going to happen that I mentioned earlier is the end of the temporary relaxation for student visa holders' work permission. So since January 2022, international students can work full-time in an attempt from the previous government to address the skill shortage that we have been hit with as a result of the border closure for almost 2 years during the pandemic here in Australia. So we saw a number of jobs that normally rely on temporary visa holders suffering skills shortages, people shortages, but also with time, even other jobs. We need anything from kitchen hands to engineers and scientists, and it's not changing. So there was a package of measures the government implemented, and one of them was allowing students for the first time ever to work unlimited hours. And this is the situation now. Students can work as much as they want since January 2022. Now, we have been informed by the government in an announcement that this will end on the 30th of June at the end of the financial year. So on the 1st of July, students go back to having limited work rights with a plus. So we know that before the pandemic, before this decision, students could only work 20 hours a week or 40 hours a fortnight. Now, from the 1st of July, students will be allowed to work 24 hours a week or 48 hours a fortnight. So that's great, but it's not as good as being able to work unlimited hours. So if you're on a student visa, you know this change is coming on the 1st of July. If you watch our videos, if you follow us, you know. So what are you doing about it? That's a change coming for you. Are you looking for sponsorship? Are you looking at a training visa? Are you looking at keeping those work rights somehow? Another change that we don't know if it will come, but that we have been, crossing all fingers for a long time is a return to the possibility for every sponsored worker to be able to apply for a permanent employer visa. So before March 2018, when the government replaced the 457 visa with the current 482 TSS visa, anyone who got a 457, they had an occupation that was on the 457 temporary sponsorship visas list, could apply later for a permanent employer visa because these two visas looked at the same occupation list. It was called Consolidated Skills Occupation List. And the previous government unfortunately destroyed this in 2018. And from then on, only people on the medium and long-term list. So they broke that Consolidated Skills Occupation List into two. And now we have the short-term skills occupation list and the medium and long-term skills shortage list. Only people on this medium and long-term list whose occupations are on this list can apply for a permanent employer visa 186. So Labor government has always been pro permanent residence for people who are here working temporarily. They believe that if we invite you to work in our country on a temporary basis, you should be able to stay permanently if you choose so. Labor came into power in May last year. It's going to be almost a year now, and nothing has been done about this, even though the government talks a lot about being pro-permanent residence. So we're hoping and praying that the government will allow people of all occupations. If we have a sponsorship visa for you, you should also be able to get a permanent visa. So fingers crossed this could be a change coming on the 1st of July. And like I said, here at Bravo, we have all our fingers and toes crossed for you, because we know this would change a lot of lives out there. And that's part of our business, helping you change your life and having the option to stay in Australia permanently if you choose so. This is it for today. Thanks for watching and listening. And if you want to apply for a visa before the end of the financial year, get in touch with us via the description of this video if you're watching on YouTube, or in the link in our bio if you're watching on Instagram. See you later.